So Redmi Note has been a huge success here in India, and today I want to invite all of you to explore together our next chapter. Redmi Note 3. Premium metal body, never seen before in a Redmi series device. It's the first Mi phone with a fingerprint sensor. It's got a massive battery, over 4,000 mAh in capacity. But without a doubt, the most significant technology breakthrough of this product is this phenomenal processor, Qualcomm Snapdragon 650. Redmi Note 3 is the first smartphone in India with the Snapdragon 650 processor. And not only that, it's actually the first one in the entire world. But how fast exactly? Now, how is that possible on a 600 series Snapdragon processor? The 650 is the first Qualcomm chipset to use the ARM A72 CPU core. Snapdragon 650 uses two A72 CPU big cores and four A53 little cores in this big little architecture that many are already familiar with. So here's how 650 compares with 808, Snapdragon 808, which is a flagship processor on Nexus 5X, for example, to 808. So here's the data. Redmi Note 3 outperforms every Snapdragon 808 device out there. Here we compared it with Moto X Style and Nexus 5X, both very popular high-end phones. And you can see it's a pretty tremendous too, for instance. The key question here is, can two A72 cores potentially outperform four A57 cores? Well, here's the data. Also, Redmi Note 3 features the latest generation Adreno 510 GPU. Well, can Redmi Note 3 take the heat? Note 3 is a pretty cool 37.7 degrees. Nexus P is a bit warmer at about 42.4 degrees, and you can obviously see that clearly on the images here, the hottest point on the top. In addition to CPU and GPU details that I've shared, 650 has a bunch of other features that really are only found traditionally in flagship-grade processors, including things like dual-channel RAM, a dual-image processor, which I'll talk about in a bit, and VoLTE support, which I'm also going to touch on. And thanks to this chipset, Redmi Note 3 is the most powerful Redmi Note ever. Was about battery life. So the first test was gaming, uninterrupted 3D gaming for hours and hours from 100% battery until the phone dies. In this test, Redmi Note 3 got 7 hours and 10 minutes. Next, we did another test with uninterrupted video playback from 100%, again, until the phone dies. We got 10.5 hours of astonishing results. Thank you. Now, continuing on here, Redmi Note 3 is the first Mi phone to feature a fingerprint sensor. It's capacitive fingerprint scanning technology. It unlocks it in just 0.3 seconds. So speaking of the camera, let's talk about the camera a little bit. I spilled some secrets already. So 16 megapixel camera, as you all know. PDAF autofocus, dual ISP, f2.0 aperture with a 5-piece lens and two-tone flash. Redmi Note 3 uses phase detection autofocus, or PDAF for short. It's a focusing technology that was commonly found in DSLRs. It's much faster than conventional contrast-based autofocus. Taking really good photos requires a powerful processor as well. You know, every smartphone features what's called an image signal processor, or ISP. The ISP is basically the CPU for the camera. It's the best way to think about it. The ISP controls the camera, but it's also in charge of post-processing. It makes adjustments to the image in a fraction of a second after you took the photo and before you actually view it on your screen. So that's what the ISP does. Snapdragon 650 has dual ISPs. With a dual ISP, Redmi Note 3 does a far better job in noise reduction, color correction, and quite a few other areas, including some complicated ones that I cannot explain. Beautiful shot, right? Here's another one. This is still from the same series, and you can see the colors, you can see the crispness, you can see how the shadow areas look really well balanced. Texture here is phenomenal. These are, I guess, like I said, untouched photos. This is Gulmarg in Kashmir, very popular skiing destination in northern India. This is right here in Delhi, Old Delhi. Redmi Note 3 ships with a 5-megapixel camera, of course, the most popular camera. But let's talk about display. So Redmi Note 3 ships with a Full HD display, 401 ppi. You guys already know this, but it's definitely no ordinary display. I'm going to tell you about some cool features. First is sunlight display, which is a flagship feature that we introduced last year to our Mi devices. Redmi Note 3 is the first Redmi device to actually get sunlight display here in India. This is a hardware feature, by the way, that makes the screen much more visible under harsh sunlight. It also adjusts the contrast at a pixel level. Here's a really cool image, sunlight display in action. These photos were taken outside of our office in broad daylight. Next to 6P, here to your left, and then Redmi Note 3 on the right, and you can see the dramatic difference when sunlight display kicks in. You can see the text much more clearly on the right. Same comparison, this one with iPhone 6s Plus under bright light, and you can see how sunlight display brings the darker area, makes it much more visible, so you can actually see the display. So this wireless connectivity is probably one of the strongest points of Redmi Note 3, which is why I'm talking to it towards the end here. Redmi Note 3, of course, has dual SIM support, 1 micro and 1 nano slot, so you have more flexibility. Another very, very popular feature of our devices is infrared. Now, infrared isn't a new feature in smartphones, but hardly anyone uses it, right? Well, that's because you have no user-friendly interface. You have to download individual apps to control, the various different infrared devices that you have. It's way too troublesome. It's kind of don't bother. So we wanted to do infrared well, so that you could actually feel compelled to use it. And we wanted Redmi Note 3 to really be a universal remote control, and that's what we've done. Redmi Note 3 is compatible with 100 brands, or with hundreds of brands, and thousands of different models, from TVs, air conditioners, set-top boxes, DVD players, home theaters, and so on. So that you don't have to worry about losing your remote control ever again. It controls TVs, and it even controls things like your DSLR camera. A couple of things here about India specifically. We're adding 3 new Indic languages to MIUI, Nepali, Odia, and Urdu, and that completes us to 13 Indic languages that are now natively supported as part of MIUI. So let me just summarize Redmi Note 3 really quickly for you guys. Everything I've already talked about, Snapdragon 650, the massive battery, metal body, fingerprint sensor, the 16-megapixel camera with dual ISP. I didn't mention micro SD, of course, up to 32 gigabytes. I didn't mention 802.11 AC, which is another great feature. Usually not found in these level of devices, but it's there on Redmi Note 3. Price. कितना दोगे? So $9,999 for 2 gigs and 16 gigs. And for the 3 gig, 32 gig version, $11,999. All right. Okay, you can get your hands on a Redmi Note 3 next week on March 9th at 2 p.m. Both variants of memory will be available in the first sale. It'll be first available on Mi.com and Amazon for some period of time. And then soon after, it will be made available across online platforms, including Flipkart, Snapdeal. And it's also going to be retail through offline partners. So we're bringing Redmi Note 3 everywhere for you guys.